Hey, folks.
We are live. Happy primary night.
Oh, my God. Happy Taco Tuesday, Todd. Did
Taco
you celebrate
Tuesday, the best day
with
of the week.
tacos? I don't know about you. We celebrated with Taco Tuesday with Asian food because we're not racist.
Yeah, we're very inclusive over here. We actually had shrimp and zucchini, so probably the opposite of tacos.
Giddy up. Well, folks, we did a little bit of a unscheduled broadcast tonight. Todd and I were talking the other day. We were streaming a live stream of a congressional hearing, and all of a sudden a bunch of people tuned in, and we're like, well, let's see if anybody tunes in to primary results. So for those who don't know, tonight the Democrat and Republican primary in New Hampshire, we've got Ron DeSantis has dropped out. We're down to Nikki Haley. Todd, what are you thinking about this primary?
Well, it gets interesting. I think we have to start with this, Jason. I want to do it before results come in anymore. I want to talk about a tweet from Meghan McCain today because she did a flashback to her late father winning in 2008. He lost Iowa big. And back then it was like Romney and Ron Paul and Mike Huckabee was the front runner who actually won Iowa in 08. And so McCain, if you recall, wins New Hampshire. I hadn't recalled this, but he wins New Hampshire, goes on to getting the nomination, and then gets shellacked by Barack Obama, and then turns out to sell out this country once Trump comes into office with his horrific Obamacare vote.
Oh,
but
my God,
she
you
tweeted
remember
out,
that?
"Good job, Dad. Here's your happy 25th anniversary." And I only share this because I was on Twitter, it popped in my feed, and I read the comments, and I knew exactly what they would say, and it was glorious. I don't know if there's a single American left that supports the McCain family, except Jason, maybe if you vote for Nikki Haley, because I don't see a difference.
Oh, my God. Isn't that the case that you've got Ron DeSantis, or I mean, you got Nikki Haley, is John McCain with a pair of breasts, maybe some high heels?
Policy-wise, zero difference. You are a establishment warmongering neocon. And Jason,
Right.
the results, we got some live results coming in right now. It's early. I know Nikki Haley won the very first when they're in that really tiny community up north in New Hampshire. So she got 6 votes to Trump's none. So it looks really close right now with the initial count. I gotta guess that's going to change here because, again, I've never met a Nikki Haley supporter. I've met a lot of Trump supporters, though, and I don't think Minnesota's all that different from New Hampshire.
Yeah, I got to say what Todd's talking about. So there's this little community up in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire called Dixville, of all things. And there's 12 voters in Dixville, 12 or 13, something like that. They went 100% Joe Biden in the last election. But in the New Hampshire primary, the whole community voted early, so they reported the results at like 12:01. It's kind of a thing where they all go vote at midnight, this small town. And all 6 that voted in the Republican primary voted for Nikki Haley. Now, it's important to understand this, folks. In New Hampshire, you can show up and say, I'd like to register as a Republican and vote in the Republican primary. And you can do that. You don't have to actually be a Republican. So before we get going, Todd, we were talking about it off air. We got to give our predictions. We'll start with you. What are you saying you think the results tonight will be?
Listen, I'm a little aggressive here, but I'm going to start with the logic first. I'm going to give you a number, Jason. Trump pulled 50% in Iowa. That was with Ron DeSantis in the field. That was with Vivek in the field. Those two who got second and fourth are gone, and they've both come out and endorsed Trump. So I'm giving Trump his 50. I'm going to split DeSantis's Iowa total. I'm going to give him most of Vivek. That puts me in the 65 to 70 camp. So I'm going to shoot for 66%. Trump's coming in tonight.
Oh, my gosh, you're aggressive. And what percent are you giving Nikki Haley?
Yeah, see, I don't like to do the rest. I don't want to give her 34 and round it out. I'm going to give her a 31% because you always have those people that are going to write in Mickey Mouse or they're going to write in Ron. I'm sure there are these only Rons out there that are going to still vote for Ron DeSantis because the TDS is real in the Republican side and people are still going to vote for Ron, even though he's out, even though he just suspended, quote unquote, his campaign.
Now, I was going to say, I do a podcast earlier on these same platforms, and I'm on record this morning as of like 11 o'clock Central Time. My prediction, Donald Trump, 51%, Nikki Haley, 44%, and the others 10 or 5%. So that rounds out my 100. And I'll give you my logic. Trump's base, the MAGA base, and keep in mind, I am voting for President Trump. I mean, if you look in the back, my little gold statues, President Trump, I supported him in 2016, 2020. So I'm a Trump guy. But here's the numbers. I think half the Republican base is MAGA. I think Ron DeSantis was a ploy to give the never Trump base a place to land. So he came out with these awful, horrible policy positions and or attacking President Trump. And the only purpose was so that it normalized the never Trumpers a place to go. And then when they couldn't budge the Trump base, DeSantis gets out, and then they're going to try to slide that never Trump base from DeSantis over to Haley. So that's why I kind of take DeSantis's, whatever he ended up at, 15, 17%. I take Haley's 15, 17% to Iowa, and I layer those two on, and you get yourself in the 30s. How did I get her up to 41 or 44? I think you're going to see what happened in Dixville. I think you're going to see a ton of people that are registered Democrats, have no intention of voting for the Republican, but they're going to try to skew the primary because they know they can't beat Trump. The swamp fears Trump.
Jason, you mentioned an important part there where if it was an honest vote, I think Trump on the Republican side dominates. But like you said, it's an open primary, which a lot of states seem to be moving in this direction of all things, which allows Democrats to come in and try to rig the system and make it look a little different than it is. So interesting angle up in New Hampshire. I have no doubt that's the case. And I want to go back to the other comment I had here just a second ago about it's so bizarre that Nikki Haley has that many votes, let alone any votes. This is the mystery of 2024. Who is supporting Nikki Haley that is actually a Republican? And to your point, I don't think it's that many. It's all fake Democrats that, like you said, Biden took that early community, and now she goes 6-0 up there. You can't make that up.
I got to say, though, and I think what we have to realize as MAGA, for those who don't watch our podcast, we do a podcast every Friday where we do a deep dive into political corruption. And we this Friday we're talking, I don't know if you guys saw, we release it on our website, theamericantribune.com. We released an article. Explosive audio was released of the head of the Republican GOP trying to bribe Carrie Lake to not run for Senate. And Carrie Lake claimed this months ago at CPAC, and everybody called her crazy. They're like, oh, what a conspiracy theorist. That never happens, blah, blah, blah. And today the Daily Mail got the audio and released it. Folks, it's shocking. And we love Carrie Lake around here. We need more patriots like that. But it confirms all the things you've heard about the swamp, about the deep state, about what they're trying to do to this country. It's insane. But Todd and I, we are not Republicans. Todd, do you identify as a Republican?
I have never registered in my life. I've lived a couple different states. Nope.
Why are you not a Republican?
Well, I think if you're watching our show right now, you've come to understand that the Republican Party is just as corrupt. And Jason, dare I say, if not more corrupt than the Democrats. And my example is, you know exactly what you're getting for when you vote Democrat. You're going to vote for insanity. You're voting for our open borders. You're voting for late-term abortions. You know exactly what you're getting with them. With Republicans, you think this candidate might be different. He's speaking to my values. I relate to his message. And then what does that joker do? They go to Washington, D.C., and they stab you in the back, and they sell out. They profit off of your vote, and then they don't do anything to support your values. And so why am I not a Republican? Because they don't do dick for us. I have conservative values, and I will vote for the candidate, oftentimes the lesser of two evils, or in the rare case like Trump, who I will support because he is not part of that swamp.
Yeah, it was funny. I had a hard time growing up because I had conservative values, but I looked at the Republican Party and it was full of a bunch of John McCains. And I grew up dirt poor, trailer trash, and all people like me that grew up in that environment, they get you fired up. My dad's a Marine. They try to get you fired up going to the military, and then they want to send you off to the Middle East to go get blown up for whatever war they're supporting. And I'm like, why is it we always got to blow up countries with a bunch of oil, and all these military industrial people want us to go do this? So I looked at the Republican Party. I'm like, these guys are corrupt as hell. Why would I want to be a Republican? But they said they were matching my values. Now we've seen their voting record where they don't do that. But Democrats, they were just stupid. They had bad policy ideas. And then President Trump comes down the escalator and he says all those things that we think, where it's like the government's corrupt, these people are scamming you, what are you going to do? And that's when I came out as a MAGA person. And once again, I am pro-Trump, not pro-Republican. The only reason why Donald Trump has run on the Republican side is because the machine is corrupt.
Absolutely,
And
Jason.
you can't run as a third-party candidate. So, hey, folks, give us in your comments your predictions for tonight. Where do you think Trump lands? Where do you think Haley lands?
Jason, we have a lot of action on who will be the vice presidents. We haven't put anything on the line for tonight, though. I don't know. You said around 50%. I said 65%. We have quite the gap that we might have to make interesting as the night progresses.
Oh yeah, this is pretty exciting. I gotta say, I think my Haley number is going to be close. I think Haley's going to come in the strong 40s.
But
And
Jason, I almost hope she does, because they go to South Carolina soon, and I would love to see her. The longer she's in this race, the more she's going to get embarrassed, because everybody knows, Nikki herself knows, she is not going to get the GOP nomination. This is Trump's election year. Trump has the support of the American people, so she can stay in and just get humiliated. I don't know if you saw the clip where a Trump supporter went to one of her rallies recently and said, "Will you marry me, Nikki?" And she shouts it across there, and he's got everyone's attention, and she's hooked into, and she's, she responds to him, and she goes, "Will you vote for me?" And he's like, "No, I voted for Trump." And it was an amazing moment. And you can't do anything if you're Nikki, because you're stuck up there live on camera, live in front of your audience. So more moments like that, bring it on. Let's keep Nikki in this race as long as possible.
well, and I got to say, here's what's kind of sad about Nikki, and we talk about this a lot on our show. There is some people who legitimately go into politics to serve. And we saw it with Ron DeSantis, where he was a member of the House of Representatives, kind of like the guy. He's kind of a nobody. He comes out, he becomes governor of Florida, good enough governor of Florida. And then we detailed in one of the episodes of our podcast how you can see the trajectory on the run up to his reelection. The big money donors came in, they sold him a bill of goods and said he could be president. Now's your time. Strike while the iron's hot. And he ran, and he has demolished his political career after that. Nikki Haley, not all that different. She comes out, governor of South Carolina. I mean, it's coming out. She did some sketchy stuff with communist China and things like that. But then she goes to be UN ambassador. And for those who haven't heard the story, she's UN ambassador, doing good things. President Trump appointed her. And then a couple of years in, she's like, I'm getting out of UN ambassador. Turns out financial records, which you have to disclose when you run for president, she was hugely in debt. She was like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. She was bordering on bankruptcy. And Todd, what does she do when she leaves the UN?
It's amazing how much money she has accumulated after that stint, Jason. I don't know where it comes from. I know it wasn't her salary.
Oh, I know. She went to work for Boeing on the board of directors for $8 million. So let's say you leave the UN, you go out, you work for it. Now, most people think of Boeing as planes. They're one of the biggest military industrial companies in the world. They build all kinds of stuff for killing all kinds of people.
And if you ever wondered why Nikki Haley is the establishment favorite, ding, 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 ding.
Right. Yeah. And now, how many times has Nikki come out and in the run up to this where she said, let's go blow these guys up. Let's go blow those guys up. I mean, she's like Lindsey Graham on steroids. We should, before we get too far too, Todd, do you want to pull up that Meghan McCain tweet? Or did we lose that?
Yeah, I put it up here. It didn't format very well in our window, but I can read it, folks. So
read it. Go for it.
So again, the image, it's a picture of Time Magazine 2008. It says the McCain mutiny as he wins the New Hampshire primary. And so Meghan McCain tweets, "Happy New Hampshire primary day. 24 years ago, he showed them how it's done," with a heart and an American flag. And Jason, like I said, I knew this would happen, and I'm so glad it did. The comments, not a single one supported McCain. All of them are saying, yeah, but he got destroyed by Obama. There's some comments about Epstein that we won't get into. We're on Facebook right now. A lot of people calling him out as a traitor. Trump showed that. This is MAGA country now. The Republican Party of 2024 is not the Republican Party of 2008. It has moved on. Meghan McCain has not moved on, and the comments show it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and the McCain family is actually kind of a sad thing. As I look at the military industrial complex, and I look like there was a time where people actually had real military service became president. So you'd have generals and that kind of thing. And I remember Dwight Eisenhower. He actually was, I thought, a fairly good president.
Jason, I got to cut you off. It's our moment. We're live on C-SPAN,
Let's go,
folks. This is the excitement of the day. It is 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern. We are live on C-SPAN.
Should we hit the
Only
audio?
get excited about C-SPAN, Jason. Continue with your McCain, though.
Oh my God. I was going to say, folks, you guys who don't know, I got to say, Todd loves C-SPAN. Todd spends more, think of how much time you spend wasting on social media. Todd spends that on C-SPAN.
Well, Jason, I'll add, think about when you go to your 9 to 5. C-SPAN is my 9 to 5.
That's right. But no, back to McCain. So I remember Dwight Eisenhower. And for those who've never seen Dwight Eisenhower's speech he gave when he left office, and dude called out the military industrial complex. He gave a huge warning. We'd share the link. Some of these platforms don't like it. Go on the YouTube and search for it. But ever since that speech, it has become painstakingly obvious that any of the candidates with military backgrounds got bought out by the military industrial complex. And that's what John McCain was. Can you imagine a world, as much as we want to say McCain lost to Obama and that was bad, how many countries would we have blown up if John McCain was president?
Probably just as many as Obama, because at the end of the day, the MIC doesn't care if you are an R or a D.
Yeah, you might be right. Oh man, should we cut it and listen to what's going on C-SPAN, Todd?
Yeah, let's see if we got that.
Registered in a party that in which they did not want to vote in. Occasionally, there are errors that are made by the supervisors of the checklist when they are entering voter registration data into the database, and they might get a voter's registration incorrect. And in that instance, we do recommend that the supervisors of the checklist look at their records and the voter history of that individual voter and make sure that there was not an error made on their end that should be corrected to allow that voter to vote in the party that they are registered in.
And for listeners who are just joining, a reminder that the Associated Press has called the race for former President Donald Trump. But as we talk process when it comes to this election, President Joe Biden was not on the ballot here in New Hampshire, and that's following the Democratic National Committee's decision to move South Carolina first on its nominating calendar. But the state Democratic Party here in New Hampshire coordinated a campaign urging voters to still write in Joe Biden as their pick. Secretary, how might that affect the counting process this evening as we go through all the ballots?
It will take a little bit longer, but I don't expect that it will take that much longer and that we will have those results before the end of the night. In towns, and there's still many small towns.
When you bundle your
New
home or
Hampshire,
renters with your auto, Progressive provides protection for almost everything you own. But do you really need my weighted hoop?
All right.
So that was some interesting things there. They called it for Trump already, Jason. Not surprised by that. I think now we're just going to wait to see what kind of margin is he going to pull out here tonight. But then they started talking about the Joe Biden situation. We haven't really gotten into that quite yet. But folks, Joe Biden is not on. This is the Democrats' first state, shall we say, typically, historically, it's always been that way. But Biden is not on the ballot because he made a pandering promise in 2020 to move the DNC primary from white New Hampshire to, let's be honest, black South Carolina, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, just for a little historical context, actually, Democrats follow the same schedule as Republicans. They start out in Iowa, they go to New Hampshire, they go to South Carolina, and then they go to Super Tuesday. But Joe Biden worked with the DNC. First, they're not having a primary, they're not having debates. And Todd and I are both from Minnesota, and Dean Phillips, who is a Democrat member of our House of Representatives, he decided that he was going to run for president because he thought Joe Biden was awful and was going to lose to Trump. And they're not even holding debates or primaries or any of that.
Future Trump voter here. When you're live at home, we got a future Republican voter, maybe, Jason.
Giddy up. She's now internet famous. Hundreds and thousands of people are seeing you tonight, kiddo. Are you ready for that?
What's your Twitter handle? How can they find you?
She's like, I ain't saying nothing. Who's this crazy guy screaming? But back onto that. So they cancel the primaries, and Joe Biden comes out, and New Hampshire says, well, you can't cancel our primary. It's state law. So they're running the primary. The Biden team did not fill out his to get on the ballot. Yeah, isn't that crazy? So
See, a 3-year-old gets it, Jason. That's how stupid this process is.
Yeah, so when they printed the ballots, it doesn't have it. So right now, the projections, Dean Phillips has 21%, and that's with 25% vote reported. They're estimating that Joe Biden write-ins were at 15,000. So they're just taking all the write-ins and saying, let's assume that's Joe Biden. But who knows? For all that, could be it's Daffy Duck. So, yeah, so that'll be kind of a funny story. If Dean Phillips gets 20-30% in the New Hampshire primary, like that would be kind of interesting.
Unfortunately, I don't see that changing anything. Well, you and I both think it won't be Biden on the ballot in November anyways. It certainly won't be Dean Phillips of all people, but you and I don't think it'll be Biden. So honestly, not skipping New Hampshire, I don't see it really doing. It's not going to do anything, even though it's just, some drama for us to discuss as conservatives to say this is how moronic things have become in the process.
And we should talk about what we think is going to happen on the Democrat side. Todd, do I need to grab tinfoil hat?
Let's tinfoil it, because I think we have a different audience tonight. But folks, I am not going to tinfoil it because I don't even think this is that outlandish. Jason and I do not think Joe Biden will be on the ballot this coming November for a host of reasons. And I don't think that they are hidden reasons. You can see Biden for yourself, his mental, his physical. That's one thing. But we also don't think the political viability is there. There are a lot of reasons that Biden does not belong on the ballot, and he won't be on the ballot.
Yeah, so for those who don't know how the process works, and the Democrats, they're sketchy and scammy as hell. They keep changing their rules. They keep changing their bylaws. It's a fascinating story that we went into in longer form, talking about how they screwed Bernie Sanders. But Bernie Sanders should have been the Democrat nominee in 2016. And it was so corrupt that the DNC let the Clinton campaign run all their events. So nobody knew it at the time, but the DNC was in debt, millions of dollars. The Clinton campaign agreed to take the debt as long as they could decide how the money was going to be spent for the DNC, which meant they picked who was hosting the debates, where the debates were, who the moderators were. That's how Hillary ended up getting a copy of the questions. And so it was rigged against Bernie, but he was so close going into the nomination or into their convention, and then they just stole it from him at the convention. So this year, our speculation is they're not going to run a primary because they can't run a primary and run the chance that somebody that the political establishment doesn't pick.
They can't let the American people choose the next president, Jason. I think you just want to say that Bernie Sanders Trump rode the conservative wave. Bernie had the same populist wave on the other side. Everyone's done with the establishment, but they can't take the chance that it won't be their person.
Right. Yeah. So the establishment can't take the chance, so they can't run a primary. And so we always encourage people, share a podcast with people on the left, people you might not politically agree with, because they don't understand what's going on. Because if we had a real legitimate media, they'd be covering this all over. But our media doesn't. Like, what the Democrats are doing in their primary process is ridiculous. They're not even hosting debates. They're not hosting any events. I mean, even people want to say, oh, Trump didn't go to the debate. Yeah, but the RNC still held debates. I mean, Trump's like, I'm not going to waste my time. But those candidates were given primetime slots on big programs, on big networks. If you think that CNN or whatnot's a big time thing.
Big time for the airport lie.
Big time for the airport. Yeah. So the RNC was on every airport in America. Who knew? But anyway, so yeah, what Democrats are doing stuff. So Todd and I, we made predictions. It's been a few months ago now. And we're like, so what's going to happen? So we think Democrats are going to wait till it gets close to the convention. And then Joe Biden's going to have some sort of health emergency. And he's going to either announce or he's not going to be able to figure out his term, finish out his term. And then the Democrats are going to have to go plan B. Now, at the time when we made this prediction, this was like 90 days ago, I went with pick A of greasy Gavin Newsom. He was just all over. He was public. Guy was smooth. But honestly, then he did that DeSantis debate and he kind of got shellacked a bit, in my opinion. Neither one of us think it will be Kamala Harris. Although on my daily podcast that we do with Wayne Dupree, Wayne's convinced it's Kamala. And I'm like, how could it be Kamala? She's an idiot. And he's like, they got Joe Biden elected. And I'm like, good point. Black woman, how do you get rid of her? I think they're going to get rid of her by promising her a Supreme Court seat. She was a prosecutor. She was a lawyer. It's a lifetime appointment. I think they're going to say, hey, Kamala, you step aside, say you're going to help do whatever, and then you're going to end up on the Supreme Court. But Todd, who did you pick?
Let me slow walk you there. Jason, the convention will be hosted in Chicago. I don't know if you're aware of a powerful political family from Chicago. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Kamala Harris problem of race and gender is resolved by the family from Chicago. So, folks, I said it back then. I think it still looks really good. I think Michelle Obama is the dark horse. I hope I can say dark horse. I don't just dark horse. That's a I'm bad joke, bad dad joke. You saw my 3-year-old here. I'm allowed to get away with it. I think Michelle Obama is the presidential candidate for the Democrats. And Jason, I think Gavin is going to get the vice president because he, of very few Democrats, is going to be able to stand up to Vivek in the vice presidential debate. I am praying that Kamala Harris stays on the ticket as the vice president because her going up against a possible Vivek vice presidency with Trump would be pay-per-view madness. I don't care how much they charge. I would watch him slaughter her on live television. But Michelle Obama, folks, you heard it here 90 days ago. You're hearing it again now. I think that is the ticket moving forward. And look, she has no baggage either. She has no history in politics. And I know they said, well, Trump is not a politician. He's not qualified. They don't care. They just make up rules. They say stuff. Michelle Obama's got no baggage, which means you can't really go after her as easily. Although, Jason, there are a few things that we could make comments about.
I was going to say, yeah, for Michelle Obama, personally, I'm not convinced she's a woman. I like to call her Big Mike. I think you got the sausage floating down there. I could be wrong. I could see that. I mean, 2024 has been so weird. These last few years have been so weird. I could completely see him coming out saying we're going to have our first transgender president. And hey, Big Mike's our guy. I don't know. I mean, things are weird. But I mean, don't even get me talking about the Obama chef. That was crazy. That was wild. Media doesn't report on that, but guy drowns in 2 feet of water and all the report. It's goofy. Right when he announced he was going to do a book deal, that he was going to talk about things going on in the Obama house. So anyways, yeah, all that was weird, but I've come around to Todd's way of thinking. It's Michelle or Kamala. I think they bring Gavin on just because they need kind of that ham of politician. And for Michelle, it lines up where most of these presidential candidates have been campaigning for a year or two, traveling everywhere, doing anything. She literally can drop in this summer in the convention and they can say, hey, here's Michelle Obama. She has such name recognition. I got to say too, Todd, can any Republican beat Michelle Obama in an election?
That's what worries me. No. So yeah, you talk about name recognition. Dean Phillips is in New Hampshire busting his butt out. Who? Dean? What? Where is he from? Like, you and I know Dean Phillips because he's a Minnesotan. He's here in the Twin Cities area, but the rest, no one cares or knows about this guy. But Michelle Obama, I mean, you're going to get 40% as a Democrat no matter what. I think the Obama name probably pushes you to 50% no matter what without even trying. Just say, I'm the candidate. Boom, 50%. That's going to be really hard to beat, Jason.
All right. I got to fact check you, though, Todd. I bet everybody watching this podcast knows Dean Phillips, at least knows of him.
Now they do. He's in New Hampshire with 20%. What'd they say, 20%?
Yeah, no. Here's how you know Dean Phillips. So raise your hand if you were young and poor and drank cheap, shitty liquor. Okay, that was me. I drank cheap, shitty liquor. So when you're in the store and you grab that cheap Phillips vodka in the plastic bottle that gives you a hangover as soon as you smell it, although there wasn't much smell to their vodka, that's Dean Phillips. He comes from the Phillips vodka family. And I guarantee everybody at some point in their life drank at a party that cheap, shitty Phillips vodka. So everybody does know Dean Phillips. But yeah, Michelle Obama, the Obama presidency thing was so wild. So a lot of people don't know. Do you know the best selling collectible coin in the history of collectible coins?
Is it a Barack coin?
It was that, remember that Barack coin that had like hope or whatever on it?
Yeah, I do
For
remember
those
that.
who do sell collectible stuff, which we do a lot of that in business. Oh yeah, Bertha. Trump wins. We always knew it, by the way. The only question is, what does Nikki get? That's kind of the big question. But yeah, the Barack Obama coin was the best-selling coin in the history of mankind.
Kimberly, this is why, look, if you have paid any attention, if you love this country, you will know that she said she was never proud till America elected her black husband as president. Jason, I think this is a real clip. So I'm just going to say, I think I saw this correctly. Censors, fact checkers. I think there's a clip of Obama asking her at 1.2 during like some military, it might be a 9/11 thing, like, why are we standing for the flag? I got to find that clip.
Should we flip over to Nikki quick?
Yeah, let's see what she's saying here.
Then we'll get back to Michelle.
You're going to concede?
We thought we climbed every mountain, and then hello, Cool J. Turkey Club. Thank you, thank you.
What a great night. God is so good all the time.
Pandering.
Thank you, New Hampshire, for the love, the kindness, the support, and a great night here tonight. Thank you so much.
Do you think your mistress is there in the
I
audience?
want to first say thank you to my husband, who I know is watching right now. I love you. We're excited to have you. Thank you.
Is he going to stay with her after some of that news?
I want to thank my kids who are here, Rita and Nayland and Josh, who have really kind of stepped
Who
up
knows?
and
Maybe he gets some side
just given me
action.
the support I need. You really pull on your family when something like this happens, and I am incredibly blessed by their support. I have my parents at home, and I will always say that the way they raised me, to know that we lived in the best country in the world, but to also know that the best way you appreciate your blessings is to give back. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I love you so much. To my siblings, to my in-laws, to everybody back at home, to Vicki for helping me take care of Mom and Dad. Thank you for that. I will tell you, it feels like it's been a lifetime, but it has been almost a year that we've been campaigning in New Hampshire, touching every hand, answering every question, being the last person to leave.
What's that?
And we
Is she building up to saying them out?
The most amazing
0% chance.
is
what do you
the
think?
Second that we got the endorsement from Governor Chris Sununu.
Yeah, I make fun of Kentucky a lot for voting for McConnell. Like New Hampshire, like Sununu, really?
I mean, a true governor that doesn't stand behind a podium. He shows up at a diner. He shows up at the brewery. He loves the people of New Hampshire. He was been with me every single day at every single event. Chris, I couldn't have done it without you.
So here's what's remarkable for New Hampshire too.
And
Nikki spent like 50 million in TV
one.
ads.
He's a patriot. He's a hardcore
Do you know anyone that's ever been
conservative.
persuaded by a TV ad for the
And he is my friend.
No. Haleys of the world?
General Don
0%.
Bolduc and Sharon, thank you so
Is this just money laundering? Like, I know they say they're political ads. Are we not sure that they're just laundering money?
Oh yeah, no, they're totally laundering money.
I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory tonight. He earned it, and I want to acknowledge that. Now, you've all heard the chatter among the political class. They're falling all over themselves, saying this race is over. Well, I have news for all of them. New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation.
Let's get out of there, Nikki.
This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left to go.
When she gets smoked in South Carolina, she's got to be done, right?
And the next one is my sweet state of South Carolina. At one point in this campaign, there were 14 of us running, and we were at 2% in the polls. Well, I'm a fighter.
Girl power.
And I'm scrappy.
And she's a minority. Don't forget that she is a brown girl. She missed out on everything.
One standing next to Donald Trump. And today we got close to half of the vote.
Who's going to tell her it was a Democrat
vote?
vote?
To go, but we keep moving up.
Oh, Nikki.
I don't know if I can listen to her anymore.
For a lot of people, politics is
We're doing
way
this
too
for
personal.
prosperity.
It's not personal for me. I voted for Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his cabinet. I agree with many of his policies. I decided to run because I'm worried about the future of our country and because it's time to put the negativity and chaos behind us. We have an economy that's crushing middle-class Americans. We have a border that is totally open and dangerous, creating a disaster in our country. Unbelievable. We have schools that are failing too many of our children, and we have a world on fire with a war in Europe and the Middle East and a huge and growing threat from China. And then you look at Washington, D.C.
Yeah, props to the people watching and commenting. You guys get it.
About everything.
Thanks for your comments. Thanks for joining us this evening, by the way, folks. This has been great.
And we have Joe Biden in the White House making one bad decision after another. When he's making any decisions at all. Our country's in a real mess. And the question is, who's going to fix it?
We need a woman to fix it. A brown woman.
With Donald Trump, Republicans have lost almost every competitive election. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We lost the White House. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. And we lost in 2022. The worst kept secret in politics is how badly the Democrats want to run against Donald Trump.
All right, we can get back to Nikki. I love this comment, Jason, from Trumpet Chick.
We thought we climbed every mountain, and then
your screen, Jason.
Hello, Cool J.
But such a surface level, vapid, generic speech. She does not expect to win, just to block Trump. Everything she said just now in this speech is just blah, 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 politics as usual. There's nothing of substance. The oorah stuff. I mean, Trump gets criticized for his speech. It's not eloquent, it's this and that, but it's real. He says it like it is. He tells you what you're thinking. It's not just this empty pandering to folks. I'm over it, man. Like, once you've listened to Trump and gotten on board with Trump, you listen to someone like Nikki Haley and it's just, you are lying to me right now. You don't care about the border or the wars or the economy. They're always talking about the middle class and the economy. No, I'm just over it.
Well, I mean, let's go down Nikki Haley's logic path. Like, I like just following things to a logical conclusion. And first of all, this speech is just surface level, fluffy political bullshit. And one of my favorite things about President Trump, when I listen to him talk, and I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing him once on one of on our podcast, he's like a normal guy. Like I could see sitting at a bar, sitting at a restaurant, having lunch with Donald Trump, saying, "Hey, what's going on?" talking about stuff. Do you think this fake politician, like Todd, would you invite her over for your barbecue?
I would never vote her over or invite her over. And if I did, she wouldn't show up because she's like, "Who are you?" And then if she actually did show up, she would just she just comes across as so self-righteous and arrogant. She's just a typical politician. She'll be nice to you and smile to you and just not care less. Yeah, to your point, Jason, like Trump is just an authentic human being. And some of the jokes that are coming out that he made, I don't know, Jason, if you saw this one. He made a comment to Sarah Huckabee Sanders when she was press secretary and they're in North Korea. And apparently, this is all rumors, but the joke goes, or the story goes, that Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea, made some comment about how he was maybe attracted to Sarah Huckabee Sanders at the time. And Trump said, "You got to take one for the team, Sarah." Like, that is just, it's the locker room banter that gets him in trouble, but it is so real and it's endearing. Nikki Haley wouldn't make a comment like that or joke like that. It's just, it's not who she is.
Right. But everybody watching this podcast would totally say something like that and think that's absolutely hysterical.
Hilarious.
Right. Well, but listen to the path Nikki goes down. And this is important. She says the Democrats want to run against Trump and it motivates Democrat voters to turn out. Well, you have to ask yourself, why is it motivates Democrats to go vote? And that one, the media and everything's been like directed at Trump. But two, because they know Trump is a threat. They know Trump is going to get in there and do something. They know Trump is going to stop the wars. They know Trump is going to, I think he's going to go into this term with a chip on his shoulder, understanding the game more, and do a much better job with especially personnel selections. The left doesn't fear Nikki Haley because she's one of them. She's going to send money to Ukraine. She's going to get us in never-ending wars. You know, she'll probably do some more corporate tax cuts than the Democrats, but she's not going to run the country fiscally responsible. Do you think Nikki Haley is going to shrink the size of our federal government? No, she's just, and that's what we've realized is that Democrats and Republicans, they play the same grift. They like the professional politicians. I use this example, but they're like pro wrestlers, like Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik go fight in the ring and rah, 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 and then at the end of the day, they go split the T-shirt sales money, you know, and it's all fake. Your establishment Republicans. Oh, I'll let John. I'll let.
Great question, John.
We'll go into that in a minute. But yeah, no, I mean, it's the Democrats don't fear Nikki Haley because it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, Jason, how many times? So here she is with her fluff piece speech. She's just lost 2 states in a row to Trump. Instead of acknowledging the reality, she says, "I'm a fighter. Look at, we started at 2%." Just lying to herself. It all during this campaign, has she talked about abolishing the 3-letter agencies? Has she talked about what happened shortly before Joe Biden was inaugurated at Capitol Hill? Has she talked about any of the meaningful issues that you've heard Vivek speak very honestly about, Donald Trump speak very openly about, or is she just mindlessly offering these platitudes that apparently 40% of New Hampshire appreciates, and what percent nationally, I don't know, but not speaking to any of the issues that actually matter here. And so, no, she's going to go in. She's not going to change a damn thing in Washington, D.C. And that's why they all like her, because business as usual, humming along.
Oh, yeah. And if you can imagine, I mean, imagine if Mitt Romney would have won the election, which I'm not convinced there wasn't shenanigans if you look at some of those numbers. But would anything been that much different than an Obama term? We
wouldn't have gotten Trump. Let's be honest. Like, there's no Donald Trump if there's a Mitt Romney presidency. So silver lining. But no, from a policy standpoint, nothing changes with Mitt Romney there.
Right. I mean, they still screw us. They just screw us a little bit differently, you know. Oh, yeah. Now, Todd, let's address the elephant in the room because you touched on it.
I did make a comment earlier. And I feel like we have to go down the path of, because there's some allegations with Trump paying people off too. But the rumor goes that Nikki Haley, as far back as 2007. So, okay, what's going on recently, we do not know, but it seems pretty verified at this point that while her husband was deployed in the Guard, so military service member goes overseas, and she's talking about support the troops, this and that. So she wasn't very supportive of her one troop at home, and has quite a long affair. Sounds like with some people close to her campaign as she's in the South Carolina House, and then moves up to the governor's mansion in South Carolina. So there's the one for sure. I think I read maybe a second, but I'm not positive, Jason. But it seems like the answer is yes. And he's still there.
And I'm going to give shout out to Laura Loomer. We follow Laura Loomer. I've met her a little bit before, helped her with some marketing stuff. Great gal, great investigative journalist. You won't find her on Facebook or YouTube. They've canceled her. But go over to X. Laura's on there. And she's actually done some digging, and there's court documents that now, just because somebody said something in a court document doesn't mean it's true. But there were documents that claim that, yes, in fact, Nikki Haley was letting somebody dip the wick, shall we say. And Todd, I got to say, if your husband's serving in military, deployed, defending the country, that's pretty bad, isn't it?
It's pretty bad. And Jason, I don't know if this is the time to make the comparisons to Trump here. We're a political show, not necessarily talking about human nature and biology and double standards of the sexes there. I think that's a separate conversation. But it's an interesting one have in light of some of Trump's rumors and allegations and Nikki Haley's rumors and allegations. Not defending one or the other, but I do think they are different. I'm going to leave it at that right now, as we can talk about maybe the primary more.
Right. So it looks like, just looking at some of the numbers, I got a few different websites pulled up. Looks like we're at 25% of the votes. Donald Trump at 53%.
Okay, that's closer to yours.
Yeah, Nikki Haley, 46%.
Eesh.
This one really surprises me, Todd. Ron DeSantis at 0.5%. He only has 464 votes. So, yeah, those percents. Actually, Trump came down a little bit. Haley went up a little bit. But what did you think? Ron DeSantis even dropping out, being still on the ballot, like his name's on the ballot when they go
said
to
that at the start of the show. I said people would still vote for Ron because Ron or nothing. You have these never Trumpers that, I'm going to be honest, if you are a never Trumper, you're not a conservative. I don't know how else to say it. Or you're too selfish to put the country ahead of your own needs. Like, maybe I didn't want Trump right away. I did, but what if I liked Ron as governor of Florida? He had some good stuff. So when you and I were like, yeah, Ron is vice president back in the day, this would be a great ticket. You and I were certainly supportive of Ron DeSantis, but look, Trump is the guy. I'm going to get behind him. And if you're going to say I'm going to sit this one out because my guy didn't win and I don't like Trump, and you're going to hand the country to Democrats, piss off. I mean, you are doing more harm. You're so much more harm than good because of your little moral righteousness.
Well, and we got to talk about the DeSantis campaign, because so if you timeline it out, and I said we did a podcast episode on it where we broke it down, Ron DeSantis leading up to his reelection was actually building his pack with his big money donors that was going to run his presidential campaign. He didn't tell Florida voters, and he couldn't declare to run for president until he had the Florida legislature reverse the resign to run law. The resign to run law says if you're going to run for higher office, you need to resign your office, and your resignation takes effect whenever the next job starts. So he ran for re-election knowing he was running for president and didn't tell the people of Florida.
Got asked point blank in the debate by Charlie Crist, which was a great moment. And then he hides behind the fact he's looking all awkward, like we didn't agree to take questions from these guys. But I mean, it was a great moment if you're running against DeSantis.
Oh yeah, and he just totally collapsed, and I mean, like, he wouldn't answer the question, and it was funny because people heard his political double talk and are like, "Oh yeah, no, he won't be running against Trump." And then it was funny on, like, with Wayne and Hutch. Wayne, they're like, "Oh, he's totally running." I'm like, "No way, maybe as vice president." And they're like, "No, he's running," and then he ran. But if you look at how much money, and for those who are on social media, especially Twitter, like the the only DeSantis folks were vapid. They were awful. And I got to say, so to put it in perspective, Nikki Haley has 36,000 votes. Ron DeSantis, who just dropped out, granted. But I thought maybe I had projected 5% in the other category because I thought DeSantis would pull 2 or 3%. He is at 0.59%. He has 470 votes for him out of like 80,000 votes. It's truly remarkable. Now, in the funnier numbers, too, just to, it's refreshing, so it's going to take a second. Yeah, so in the funnier numbers, Ron DeSantis, 470 votes. Chris Christie has pulled in 52 votes. I got to say, if you're in New Hampshire, how the hell do you say, yeah, give me Chris Christie?
They have to be jokes, right? Like it has to just be someone, I'm a young kid. This is my prank moment. I don't care about politics. It can't be a real vote. I have to tell myself and convince myself that there aren't people actually voting for Chris Christie after he's dropped out. It's bad enough 40-something% are going for Haley right now. I have to live with that. But someone actually took the time to vote for Chris Christie, who's not even in it.
I got to say, Mike Pence coming in a strong 4th place with 25 votes. Seriously, is this Mike Pence's cousins?
Or does he have one extended family member out there with
right
kids?
Oh God, is this Trump speaking? Oh no, that's not Trump speaking. We're waiting for the
president. Are they going to show Trump?
I don't know. He might have to go to a different channel. Tim Scott got 4 votes. Oh my God, yeah, there's a bunch of
Vivek on there at all?
What's that?
Is Vivek on there?
Vivek, yeah, he's at 21 votes. Poor Vivek. Although in that,
did Mike Pence get more than him?
So far. But now let's put this in perspective. And I've been convinced that the DeSantis campaign was purely an attempt to separate out the Never Trump segment and then give them a place to land. And then eventually they would try to transition that to whoever their pick was, which ended up being Haley. And Vivek ran against Trump, never attacked Trump, just said, you know what, I think we need somebody younger, better. And then as soon as Trump won Iowa, Vivek came out and said, it's clear. And he never said like Trump sucks or any of that. He just said, you know, I think we need somebody younger. And after he dropped out, he endorsed Trump, but he actually spent time up in New Hampshire campaigning for President Trump, which was I thought was pretty badass.
You've done a couple of rallies for him now. I'm a big Vivek fan. I know politics, if you're talking 4 or 5 years, it's a lifetime. So I know a lot of people are like, Ron's time is over, Vivek 2028. It'll be interesting to see where he lands in Trump's campaign here moving forward and then potentially administration. But I really like Vivek, and I like that he's honest about, feel like, big pharma shill. I mean, he's just too much of a smooth talker. And I saw Scott Adams on Twitter make a comment like, they're all comparing him to Obama, except he's saying the exact opposite things of Obama. So he's anti-establishment, anti-globalist, anti-climate stuff, anti-everything. Yeah, really good shill, guys, for trying to abolish the 3-letter agencies.
I was going to say, oh my God, Mike, he nailed it too. Trump is my president, our president too, Mike. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'll say I was an early Vivek adopter. And it was funny, you know, we do some work on social media, and one of the guys I know and do a little bit of work with, Mike Spraza, on Twitter, he had said, check this guy out, because somebody he knew was helping him work with his communications. And I listened to Vivek do long form interviews, and I started looking up his background because there are all the Soros claims and all that stuff. And I started looking into it, and it was pretty apparent to me that not only was Vivek one of the most effective communicators in my lifetime, he is one of the smartest human beings you'll ever meet. I mean, you see somebody, it's funny, like I'll watch him do these off the cuff things, and somebody will ask him some random question, and he'll go, well, you know what? Let me tell you about this, article in the Constitution in the 5th paragraph of here. And then there was this court case, and he knows all the facts. Like, and then I'll write it down, and I'll be like, is this guy for real? And then I'll go search, and I'll be like, son of a bitch, he had all that memorized.
And compare that to Nikki Haley's speech just now. It's night and day.
Oh, right. Yeah. And you compare it to Nikki Haley, smart, articulate. He actually gives out some, like, I never listened to Vivek talk and don't walk away going, I am smarter now. And half the time I have a little notepad and I'll be like, I gotta look that up. I gotta look that up. I gotta look that up. So I'm excited and I'm glad that he is going to campaign with Trump. I hope he finds a spot in the administration. Todd, if I got to pick a job for Vivek, though, you know what I would pick?
Curious to hear this.
Press secretary.
That would be good.
Can you imagine every day Vivek going out?
He manhandled reporters on the campaign trail, so it would be just glorious day in and day out. I mean, just calling CNN out on the spot and flipping the script and hammering them with facts, because you're not going to get the narrative past him. Yeah, that would be a great spot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like Kayleigh McEnany, and she'd bring out her big binder, and let me open that. But Kayleigh couldn't really handle the press. Like, her press conference always got out of control, and they were screaming. And so Vivek would have the Kayleigh McEnany binder only in his head. Like, dude would walk out there with like one sheet of paper and they'd say, oh, can you give me a breakdown on this small country in Eastern Europe's agriculture? And it'll be, you know what? Well, that country, their main thing is potatoes. And you'll be like, how does this guy know that? And he'll be right. It's the craziest thing ever.
I like press secretary. That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my dream.
Hey, let's go to this phone call. I'm curious what they're talking about here.
All right.
Write-ins, that's referring to the Israel.
When you bundle your
Gaza
home or
war
renters with
in
your
there,
auto,
there was an
Progressive
effort in
provides
your
protection
state
for
for
almost
folks
everything
to
you
write
own.
in that word instead of the president's name. Do you think that you'll see the?
I think
go ahead.
Yeah, I think a good amount of my progressive friends could write that in, and I hope they do. I think Joe Biden needs to get the message. So.
All right. Thanks for calling in tonight, Holly in Dayton, Ohio.
All right, I have a comment for everything. Some people say that's a bad thing, but opinions and everything. I listen to Dennis Prager a lot, Jason, and so this gentleman here, an old progressive, Prager often says there's no excuse to be naive as an adult. He says it's a moral sin. I'm listening to this old guy talk about writing Joe Biden in, and he said, I'm going to talk to my progressive friends. Like, how can you be a progressive as an adult? You have had your entire life to see what reality is, how the world works, how the world turns. And you come away with all of that lived experience and you say, you know what we need more? Government. There's no excuse to be ignorant like that.
Well, right. And actually, I think what he's talking about, and we're doing this in real time, folks, so I could be incorrect. But I think what that voter was talking about was not voting in Joe Biden. They were voting in ceasefire.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm making a comment on just being progressive in general. But yeah, no, it wasn't about writing in Joe Biden.
Yeah. So when you see these write-in numbers, they're writing ceasefire. And here's how you know the Democrat Party's corrupt. You're never going to see how many votes ceasefire got. But who are they going to count those votes for, Todd?
Oh, did you scribble something on there? It must have said, it looks like Joe Biden. It looks like every signature on the 2020 ballots, I'm sure. Oh, that matches. That looks just like Joe Biden.
Exactly. So yeah, that's gonna be comical. Oh man. Well, this is terribly exciting. God, where do you think it's gonna land, Todd?
I have the closed captioning right over the number. There it is. Okay, so I'm seeing a 54. I was just looking at the numbers here. It's fascinating. I don't know how many. Well, you have maybe 100,000 votes coming in. So this isn't like the general election. But I always wonder. Like, it seems like this is going to be really quick. It seems like they're going to be comfortable with the results. And then you look at, like, you go back to Argentina's election with Milei, and you have this very anti-establishment character. You got to assume there's some sort of establishment in Argentina. They count all the votes in like 6 hours. They're going to count all these votes tonight. I don't think Nikki Haley's going to contest the results. And then you just get to November and you're like, I need to wait 4 weeks.
It was funny. So I'm on Facebook. We do work on Facebook. People are watching on Lose News. I'm Jason. This is Todd. We're the guys who do the original Lose News. But my account, Jason Robertson, I'm on Facebook. I post links on there, links to our podcast. I'm pretty proud of the work we do. My English teacher, Mr. Yost, he comments on my Facebook page. Now, when I was young, and the guy's old now, to be honest, I'm 50. I don't know how he's alive. He was old when I was in middle school, high school. But Mr. Yost was a hippie, peace loving, like we always kind of figured he was smoking pot on break. We're in a small town, and a little goofy, but your ex hippie. And he will drop on my timeline to make comments every time I post anything for any content we create. Todd and I did a podcast last Friday where we broke down the border problems. We talked about the issues with the policy. Will, who writes for our Substack, did a great breakdown, offering some policy suggestions. We linked to official government documents on stats. We talked about like the official executive orders. Like, this isn't hyperbole. We actually do research, go on the government sites, actually find out what the laws are, not what CNN said or Fox News. We do that level analysis. So we broke down the border thing. And I just share it on my Facebook page. I got a few hundred people on there, and Mr. Yost chimes in, and he's like, "Trump's going to jail. He's an idiot." And I'm like, "What did you think about the podcast?" "All your guys' stuff is propaganda." I'm like, "Well, did you watch the podcast?" Because we cited government numbers, like 3 million people this year. That's way too many, and it's just like total Trump derangement syndrome. So it's sad that people like that get to vote in elections and try to
Voting
he was
should be
actually
harder. That's a very often used motto of mine. Voting should be harder.
Yeah. Well, actually, Vivek had an interesting angle on that. We'll give for folks that are still tuning in, we'll give you kind of an assignment if you want. You're on the interweb, all right? So go on the internet, pull up a copy of the citizenship test. It's 100 questions. And then try to fill that out and see how you would do. And most people who are going to watch us talking about the New Hampshire primary on a Tuesday night probably are fairly well educated on civics. That's a tough test. And I tell you what, next time you're going to meet with your lefties who for whatever the holiday is coming up, print out a few copies and bring it. And then when they start talking about stuff, just say, "Tell you what, before I care about your opinion, I'm going to hand you the citizenship test. You fill it out. And if you pass, I will listen to what you have to say." And I guarantee they will not pass.
Yeah, in their defense,
there it is.
we'll get to Trump when he walks on stage. In their defense, they would say that the Constitution is 200 years old. It was written by white slave owners. Like, I know better than them. I have a better moral compass. I'm smarter than them because people were dumb, in the 1700s. And they don't care. You can say, there's a reason we have an electoral college. There's a reason we have this in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And they're going to say it's not relevant now because I know better how to do communism the right way. You can't win. You'll just talk in circles over and over.
Well, yeah, and it's funny too because that's interesting. 53% non-Republican electorate, 45% ideas independents, and 8% is Democrats.
You wonder where the Haley numbers come from.
All right. So it went up from 45 to 53%. Holy cow. Exit polls, 47% of the GOP primary voters are registered as undeclared independents. Truly, truly remarkable. This stat's funny too. I've seen different numbers on this where it's talking about, do you think the election was legit? And total numbers are 50-50. Republicans, it's like 80-20. Democrats, it's like 20-80. So it's it's fascinating. God, think of that. Half these people that voted and I mean, let's put the numbers in perspective too, which I got to look up. So give me 1 sec.
Boy, look at the breakdown of states though. Iowa, 67% no, 29% yes. And then New Hampshire, it's split down the middle.
Right. All right. So we're talking the presidential election in 2020 in New Hampshire. There was 425,000 people voted for Joe Biden, reported to report for Joe Biden. 365,000 for President Trump. So it was 53-45 Trump, right? Now, for those who don't do primaries much, if you add those two together, you're oh no,
I think that's an old one.
That's an old one. So if you add those together, there's 800,000 voters. And then if you look at primaries, you usually get about 20% of that votes in a primary. It depends on the state. There's a lot of variables. But it's more a Democrat state than a Republican state. Like that much is clear. So if you look,
Jason, no, interesting point on that though. They have a governor that is a Republican in name, Sununu. They have a Republican legislature, but they went for Joe Biden, and now they're more supportive of Haley than Iowa certainly was. I mean, New Hampshire is a rhino state.
But here's what I'm going to say. On the Democrat side, which more people voted for Joe Biden, they have 40,000 total votes on that side. If you add up the write-ins, Phillips, Williamson. If you look on the Republican side, they have 2.5 times that. So if you wonder where those Democrat votes went, welcome to your Haley's voters.
Yeah. Or welcome to turnout too. I mean, again, to our point about Biden not being on the ballot, there is zero enthusiasm for Joe Biden. I mean, nationally, he's polling at like 70% disapproval or something ridiculous like that. He will not bring people to the ballot box on November. And that's, again, to our point. We talked about it earlier if you're just joining us, but Jason and I both agree Biden is off the ticket. And are we both on the Michelle Obama train now for Democrats?
I got to say, I don't like to change predictions, because I think you got to stick with what you predicted.
Well, I'm going to hold you to your $50, but I will let you change your prediction.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that it is... well, I'm going to stick with my Gavin Newsom prediction. I picked Big Mike Obama as kind of my dark horse, like crazy pick. I got to say, though, as I flesh out talking to Wayne about Kamala Harris, I totally see the Democrats picking Kamala Harris.
I would love it if they did, but they're not that. They might be evil, but they're not stupid. If they had the choice between Michelle and Kamala, and Kamala's she's been attached to this disastrous Biden administration. She can't speak. She can't function. I mean, she is utterly useless as a human being. She cackles all the time. And then you have Michelle, who's got the recognition. I mean, can you imagine Barack on the stage too? Like first husband Barack. I think people would go crazy.
Well, let me take you on a thought experiment, Todd. Are you ready? Do you think Joe Biden is actually acting as the president of the United States?
No, absolutely not.
Who's running it?
Well, if you're, or Facebook, am I allowed to say that it seems like there is a lot of connection to the Obama family still? There are rumors out there. I'll say that maybe some of them seem fairly grounded in reality, and it would make sense.
But it's clear to say, like, if you've ever had a relative in memory care, when you're sitting there talking to Joe Biden, like, I gotta say, oh yeah, Richard, just fact check. Yes, we're talking about Big Mike. But somebody, I'm not convinced somebody wasn't telling Barack Obama what to do. His donors, whoever. So,
well, Jason, it's interesting. I got to make this comment here because you and I talked about predictive programming a couple of weeks ago on our podcast, and then the Obama produced movie, Leave the World Behind, or I forget what the title is exactly. But there's a black character, one of the main actors in the film, is suggested to be a Barack Obama character. He's articulate, wealthy, he's suave, and he makes a remark in that movie at one point talking about, I only know so much. There's people above me. So to your point about someone maybe pulling Obama's strings, like that character alludes to that very thing. We're going down rabbit holes now, folks. It's been an hour of C-SPAN.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're a conspiracy theorist like me, and like I can pull up tinfoil hat again, but I think that if you're Michelle Obama, what's the upside serving as president? Somebody's going to be telling you what to do anyways. Whoever it is, however you're getting directed, like you're going to be getting guidance from somebody. And so I can see a world where Big Mike says, I'm rich. I got my house on Martha's Vineyard. I mean, she's one of the most famous people in the world. And what's her upside in running for president? And that was always the thing why I couldn't have picked her, because at first I thought, God, she's not going to campaign. But if they drop her in, and I'd have to look up when the convention is, but it's like I
I
think
think we
early
said
summer.
August, middle
Yeah.
to late August.
Yeah, so you figure August to October, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see her dropping in, running for president. But then I'm thinking, like, what's her upside? Like, she already gets invited to all the state dinners. She gets
I
in
mean, you just get to say
everywhere.
you're the first Black woman president. I think that means something to some people. And like, I mean, let's be honest, Jason, if I had a chance to live in the White House, like pull my strings all day long, right? I'll go be president for 4 years.
Yeah, but I mean, she already lived through that. So, and I mean, look at Barack Obama. Look at how old he was year 1 and how old he looked year 8. Like,
It
I'm
ages
just
you.
saying, I see a world where Big Mike says, no, I'm just going to hang out here. And
I would love that. I think she's the one person that could win as a Democrat this year.
100%. And in fact, I think if they bring her in, it is because the poll numbers are so strong for President Trump.
So that's an interesting thing too. Depending on how the shakeouts, maybe she's not number one right now, but she is back pocket picks. Like, all right, we're going to Plan B, and we know Plan B is going to be good.
Well, and hypothetically speaking, for social media platforms like Facebook, if you really believe that there was a lot of unusual activity when they stopped counting votes at 2 a.m, there are conspiracy theories out there that say they had to figure out how many votes they needed to count. And in the campaign, Joe Biden said, it's not who votes, it's who counts the votes. Joe Biden said it himself. And I don't know if you ever know any of them old people that their memory starts going and then they just start saying shit they shouldn't. And then you're like, Grandma, you shouldn't have said that. Why did you say that? So I'm just saying, like, Trump Biden, you could see a number that would be so big that they might not be able to have enough pipes burst in Georgia. But that's when they pull pull the emergency glass and bring in Big Mike. But I mean, back to Kamala, is she any worse than Joe Biden?
I mean, Jason, if you're asking my honest opinion, it doesn't matter who's in the White House. You could have senile Joe, eloquent Barack. You could have, let's say there was a Vivek version that was a Democrat. Like, it honestly doesn't matter. They're all insane communists.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even running for president, I mean, Joe Biden's an idiot. He was a plagiarist. He said the most racist things ever. He attended who was that funeral of the guy he attended?
Yeah, Robert Byrd, the KKK guy.
Right. And
Robert Byrd, was that his name? No. Yes.
I'd have to
Senator
look
Byrd.
it up. But I mean, he was the worst candidate ever. And they ran him.
From his
the media
basement.
ran cover for him.
Yep.
You don't think they can do that with Kamala?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Again, 40% is going to vote Democrat no matter what, because they're just stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I mean, to your point, and then you got a first Black woman. People will vote for that just because that's, again, like I said earlier, a thing for some people.
Right. I mean, Kamala Harris, I mean, let's not forget the first debate. Do you remember what she did to Joe Biden?
She called him a racist.
She called him a racist. She's like,
I was that girl. She had, and she had that T-shirt just printed, ready to go. I was that girl you put on a bus, Joe. And then, oh, sure, no problem. I'll be your vice president.
Right. Yeah, she literally, I mean, it's a great debate moment, and that was a good shot. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard then ran her over with the steamroller and backed up and went back and forth like a Scooby-Doo movie. But
all right, Jason, it is 8:00 at my clock here. We saw a little 3-year-old earlier, and folks, we do this live. I am not in the bathroom, by the way. I got asked earlier, where am I? These looks like a shower curtain. This is just my wife's decorating here in the kitchen, but that's where we are because it is bedtime downstairs next to my office. But Jason, we do a podcast, and I need to be a dad right now and tuck somebody in.
All right, well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you had fun. We're gonna see. I think, Todd, I might pull this out. I don't think you're gonna get up to your Trump 65, but we'll see.
You're looking
But
pretty
we'll
good.
log out Friday, 11 o'clock Central. Tune in. Rumble, YouTube, Freedom from the Press podcast. We're still deciding if it's going to be social media friendly, but we got to dig into this Carrie Lake thing.
Oh, it's good. It's so much more than just Carrie Lake. But folks, like Jason said, love to have you tonight. This was a great primary live show for us here. And sorry that you had to listen to Nikki Haley talk for a little bit, but have a great evening.
All right. See you later, guys.